Hey everybody, welcome back to Noise in a Book. Today I just wanted to talk for a little bit about why I love literature and why I love studying it. I spend at least 1 or 2 days a week at the library, just holed up on the 4th floor reading about literary theory and literary criticism and different types of literature. I choose to study literature because I was very fortunate to have 2 people in my life that encouraged me to love reading. The first one was my mom. She's always been a big reader. She's had books around the house for as long as I can remember, and she would read to me whenever I asked her to. She also encouraged me to read. She loved that I was a big reader, and she made sure that I knew that. The second one is I was very fortunate to have Mrs. Van Dyke as my AP English teacher when I was in high school. She taught me that reading a book can be so much more than just listening to a story. If you really focus and you really concentrate and you really are willing to learn the tools and use those tools, you can have a much deeper and more meaningful reading experience. The reason I love literature, why I'm a big fan of the arts in general, is because of the story and because of its ability to evoke emotions in us and for us to experience things that we aren't actually experiencing. Through books and art and music and movies and television, I can experience something I would never be able to experience in my life, or at least that I haven't experienced in my life yet. When I read fantasy books and sci-fi books, those are things that I'm probably never going to be able to do. The books and the art that I love the most are the ones that evoke the strongest emotions and the ones I feel like are expressing personal truths that either line up with mine or challenge mine. When I was in school, and what we read in school, in elementary, junior high, and high school, the biggest blanket term I can use for it is Western fiction. A lot of European authors and American authors. I guess there could have been a few Canadians in there. I didn't really look it up. That's my bad. Because of that, I feel like coming out of school, I didn't have the greatest treasure chest of reading knowledge. I didn't know about books outside of this very narrow space. I had these blinders on when it came to reading literature, and since then I have gone a little bit more outside of my comfort zone, and I would like to continue to do that so much more. Everything that we read in school was very easy to grasp. It was very easy to understand, and it was very relatable for a white girl growing up in the United States, in a Western culture. I don't even remember much of what I read in junior high. In junior high, I mostly remember reading excerpts out of literature books. Not reading full books. I mean, we read full books. But what I remember the most is reading like excerpts of a book out of a big textbook. And I very much feel like my literary education is so incomplete, especially for how old I am. I really should be more well-read, and I am working on that. Books help us learn, they help us practice empathy, they put us inside the head of other people, which helps us do it in everyday life. They're a great way to express these big personal truths, or for an author to work out what they're thinking about topics or the world. They're a great way to express things that are going on inside of us, and especially if you're looking, for me, if you're looking at the point of view of a novel, because you have, I don't know, 200 to 500 pages to express something to the world, to explain to them how you feel about something using metaphor and simile and alliteration and repetition. Stories can be powerful when they are done well. I feel like in order to get the best out of my reading, to get the best I possibly can out of my reading, I need to study literary theory. I need to know not just why writers write, but I need to know how they write. What are their processes? What are they thinking about? How do they layer these things into their work? By knowing and recognizing the writing process, I can take a book and see that the red hunting cap in Catcher in the Rye is a reference to the fact that the main character's brother had red hair, and that gives me a deeper meaning of what this author is trying to express. The first time I read Catcher in the Rye, I picked it up out of the library. I probably was only like 13 or 14, but I hadn't had enough of a literary education to really appreciate it. I thought it was boring. I didn't understand why this book would inspire somebody to kill somebody. I didn't understand why this book was considered good. After I read it again on a bus trip to LA, when I got the tools to understand, that book became amazing to me. I love that book. Catcher in the Rye is now one of my 5-star books. It's a book that sits on my bookshelf that I will pick up and read when I don't have anything else to read, or if I want to revisit it, or if I'm in that place in my life where I need Catcher in the Rye. Whatever your language is, I guess it doesn't just apply to English. Whatever your language is, it's very important that we study it, because the point of language is to communicate, and so much of what goes on in the world and what is wrong with it is this deep lack of communication. I cannot explain to you how I am feeling because I don't have these tools. I cannot tell you how certain things affect me because I don't know how to use these tools in the sense of writing, but I am trying to learn them so that I can use them in the sense of reading. That is the biggest reason that I study literary theory and criticism in my free time, and I would encourage anyone to do it. Being able to read critically sounds so boring. I know it does, but it's because we are trained to think of it as homework assignments. We are told for years that we have to read this book, and we have to discuss the symbolism, and we have to discuss the plot line, and this is how you do this, that, and the other. And we don't ever look at it as an opportunity. Reading a book critically helps me enjoy that book more. The more I understand about theory and criticism, the more I am able to romp and play inside the books that I am reading. I think it's very important for anyone who loves reading to at least get kind of a basic understanding of literary criticism and theory. So one of my favorite books on literary theory, and what I would recommend for anyone, especially if you're just starting out, is called Beginning Theory: An Introduction to Literary and Cultural Theory. It is written by Peter Barry. I've been using the library copy. I used to own a copy because I needed it for a college class back when I did that. I would highly recommend it for anybody. He explains things very well. He has a lot of stop and think exercises that I like doing. This is actually one of the stop and think exercises from the book. At the very beginning, he asks you to talk about why you want to study English and what you want to get out of it and what your education has been thus far and what is missing from it. I decided to do this video for my first stop and think. As I've gotten older and as I've started reading more and as I've started really realizing how important it is to reading, I'm going to try and get more in depth. And I'm thinking about doing a few more theory videos on here and see what you think. It might be a fun way for all of us to learn theory together. How important do you think is reading critically? Do you think it's not important at all? Do you think it can be important, but it's just not important to you? I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I will see you next week. Oh, my hair was all crappy the entire video. Lame.